India and Pakistan continue to be at the brink of all-out war, it feels like. And joining us to discuss it is DropSite News South Asia correspondent Siddharthya Roy, joining us from, are you in Delhi now, Sid?
Yep, I'm in Delhi.
All right, well, thank you so much for joining us. I want to start with this Donald Trump clip on Air Force One where he was asked about the rising tensions. Let's roll this.
Got any message for them? Are you going to be talking to their leaders?
I'm very close to India and I'm very close to Pakistan, as you know. And they've had that fight for 1,000 years in Kashmir. Kashmir's been going on for 1,000 years, probably longer than that. And it was a bad one yesterday, though. That was a bad one. Over 30 people.
Are you concerned that there's now tensions on the border between them? Are you concerned about, how are you concerned are you about that?
Well, there have been tensions on that border for 1,500 years. So, you know, the same as it's been. But they'll get it figured out one way or the other. I'm sure that there's, I know both leaders. There's great tension between Pakistan and India, but there always has been.
So not sure about Trump's history lesson there, but the proximate cause of the tensions is a brutal terrorist attack that was carried out last week, which killed, I believe, 26, almost all Hindu tourists.
All Hindu tourists.
All Hindu tourists, and the details of the attack are absolutely chilling. You got gunmen going person to person, asking, basically, are you Muslim? Are you Hindu? And if they find Muslim, just executing them on the spot, including one Christian as well, who was killed after some mention of Gaza, apparently, as well. So, just absolutely horrific. My understanding is in India they're talking about it as kind of our October 7th, and we know what happened in Israel after October 7th. So, Sid, from your understanding, are we going to get war here?
I hope not. I hope we're not, India and Pakistan decide better than to go into war with each other, because this is not an Israel-Palestine conflict. This is a conflict between two nations who are pretty much armed to the teeth with nuclear stockpile. So a war, if it breaks out between these two countries, the escalation will go to really bad places. But it's not just hope that I'm counting on, it's also history. It's also reality of today. A direct war doesn't really help either the ruling dispensation of India or that of Pakistan. These formats of attacks, what they call proxy war in these parts, this has been happening for quite a while. And usually we see a pattern that there is some terror attack, as they call it. Then the victim country, the leadership there starts making big statements that we're going to go to war, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. Completely diverts or deflects attention from the fact that there has been a massive intel failure, a massive security failure on their side. And then it goes to this dangerous game of brinkmanship. And they start pulling out, they're piling up their forces and tanks and everything. But we haven't really seen a full-on escalation. And may I mention here that India sent out its navy towards, its big warship towards Pakistan day before yesterday, but that ship is now back in the docks. So no, I don't think there is an immediate chance of escalation.
Let's go ahead and put E3 up on the screen. Guys, you wrote an incredibly prescient piece for DropSite saying Modi's Hindu nationalist project in Jammu and Kashmir has become a nightmare for Hindus. Really sadly prescient, effectively predicting some sort of horrific terrorist attack as the one that we just witnessed last week. Perhaps you can explain a little bit of the recent, if you want, the longer term history. You can give President Trump here a little bit of an education on where the tensions actually originally stem from, not 1,000 or 1,500 years in the past as he asserted there. But what is the different approach that Modi has taken with regard to this region, and what have some of the consequences been? Why were you able to predict that we would see something as horrible as what we did just see?
Well, unlike Trump, or for that matter, Mr. Modi or General Asim Munir, some of us journalists actually spend time in Kashmir and trying to understand what's happening on the ground. That's why we are able to see certain patterns. The principal thing that Modi did was he scrapped a very important part of the Indian constitution, which granted a very large amount of autonomy to the state of Jammu and Kashmir. When he scrapped that, he made a sweeping declaration that the scrapping of, or as they call it, the abrogation of Article 370, it would usher in an era of absolute peace, and terrorism would finish once and for all. Very much like what we keep hearing President Trump saying every once in a while. Instead, what happened is that the abrogation led to the suspension of the elected civilian government in the state of Jammu and Kashmir. And it became completely controlled by New Delhi, which in turn meant that the intel networks, the ground level human intelligence networks, which actually worked to feed information, preemptive measures were taken basis that information, they died out slowly. Principal among them is it's not spoken about very widely, but one of the biggest sources of intelligence for the New Delhi government are the political parties who work on the ground in Kashmir. When you have suspended elections, when you have effectively debarred them, taken away their franchise, they do not want to cooperate. And that's what happened here. Last but not the least, we have to understand what sort of politics Mr. Modi espouses. It's one which is unbridled hatred against the Muslim population. Even if he may not say it in as many words anymore, his teams are out there abusing, demeaning, defaming Indian Muslims all the time. How does he expect the local population to cooperate and give him intelligence of these sorts? That's what we spoke about in our story, in our investigation. And I wish it wasn't this way, but yes, we did tell the world so.
And can you talk a little bit about the group that initially claimed credit for the attack, but then very oddly kind of backed off of that a few days later, and what is understood in India to be the backing of this attack?
So the group is called the Resistance Front. The Resistance Front appears to be, from all our sources, from all government records, nothing but a rebranding of the Lashkar-e-Taiba, one of the largest militant and terrorist organizations in the world, which is based out of Pakistan primarily and is focused on secessionist activities in Kashmir. What we saw not only in this attack, even in the previous attack, which we've mentioned in our report, Rayasi, I think it was, where the TRF claimed responsibility and then said, oh no, it wasn't us. But that doesn't really matter. That's not something we need to look into too much. Because if the TRF is merely the Lashkar-e-Taiba, then they've been around for a while. The Indians, technically speaking, have not given any proof on the table showing direct involvement of Pakistan, but even a cursory history, a look at history of how the LET operates. I mean, their chief is sitting and alive and under the protection of the Pakistani government, though he's under several international sanctions. This is all roads kind of lead back to Pakistan. And the Indian population is quite convinced. And interestingly enough, even the most bitter opponents of Mr. Modi across parties, they have voiced their anger and condemnation against Pakistan for enacting this attack. And they've likened it to the 26/11 attacks in Mumbai.
Yeah, it's an interesting dynamic because on the one hand, like you said, there's no evidence that's been presented that Pakistan had any direct role in this particular attack. But of course, the fact that the organization exists, is armed, and is so strong can't be separated from its relationship with Pakistan. So I asked Waqas Ahmed, who is DropSite's kind of Pakistan correspondent, for his take from the Pakistani side on what the role of the Pakistan government was in this. And he had, I thought, a pretty nuanced and interesting response. And we recorded this as a pre-interview, so let me roll a little bit of this and then get your response to his analysis.
So far, India has not presented any official evidence that Pakistan may have backed this terror attack. But interestingly, the Pakistani Interior Minister called for a neutral inquiry into this attack. And the Pakistani Defense Minister called on Russia, China, or a Western country to be a part of these investigations. And that's not normal. Pakistan had actually been trying to get closer to India for the past few years. Pakistan had been abiding by this ceasefire agreement brokered by General Bajwa in 2020. And as you also reported, that Pakistan had been looking the other way as Indian intelligence carried out a string of assassinations inside Pakistan targeting former Kashmiri militants and Sikh activists. So it seems unlikely that Pakistani military will break this ceasefire for nothing. That brings us to the more interesting question. Why is the Pakistani military the primary suspect whenever something happens in India? And that's the core of this issue. There's this dynamic that has existed between Pakistan and India for a long time. India and Pakistan have used proxy war as a strategy against each other. So automatically, whenever there's an attack in one country, the other country is blamed. And this is a knee-jerk reaction at this point. So every time this happens, there is a threat of escalation between these two countries. The problem with this particular conflict is that the escalation ladder goes as far up as nuclear. Hence, the only way out of this issue, this threat, this danger to the world is this long-standing, unresolved dynamic between these two countries must be resolved. But with the far-right, borderline fascist government in India with Prime Minister Modi and this totalitarian military regime in Pakistan, it seems impossible that either side has the will or the imagination to resolve this issue once and for all.
So Sid, an interesting point there that on the one hand, Pakistan doesn't immediately, it kind of clashes with Pakistan's more recent kind of conciliatory approach to India, yet at the same time they have been funding and backing these proxy groups for many years, so of course they're the top suspect. What's your response to what you heard from Waqas there?
Waqas is absolutely on point in what he is saying, and I agree that India has technically not put any evidence on the table. But if you note that the ministers from the Pakistan side of Kashmir, the Pakistani-occupied side of Kashmir, they did a press conference right after the Pahalgam incident. And in that, you can hear the ministers are on record saying that you can't be funding anti-Pakistan activities in Balochistan and then expect your civilians to be safe. For every civilian you kill here, we will make sure we kill Indian civilians. So this very well could be a tit for tat. And may I add here, with due caution, because this is only preliminary inputs we are getting, two of our sources in Pakistan have mentioned that this attack was in retaliation of the Jafar Express hijacking that had happened recently, just a couple of weeks back in Pakistan. So this is very much true that this proxy war or tit for tat are a thing between India and Pakistan.
Yeah, it's like they want to have it both ways. Sid Roy, thanks so much for joining us. I'd encourage everybody to go read his piece for Dropsite News. Just Google Dropsite News and kind of Kashmir, and I think his piece will come up, and you'll have a good sense. And if you would have read it when it came out, you would not be surprised that this had just happened. So Sid, thanks so much for your reporting and for joining us.
Thank you.
Hey, if you like that video, hit the like button or leave a comment below. It really helps get the show to more people.
And if you'd like to get the full show ad-free and in your inbox every morning, you can sign up at breakingpoints.com.
That's right. Get the full show, help support the future of independent media at breakingpoints.com.